Today I want to talk about an Osborne that I think is pretty exciting. Maybe not bite heads off bats exciting, but still exciting. Because this political figure episode is going to be about Dan Osborne. Never heard of him? Me neither. Apparently he's running for Senate in Nebraska. Sorry, Nebraska. It's a state kind of in the middle there, one of those squarish looking ones. I think they might have pigs there. I don't know. That's what C.W. McCall alluded to that one time. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They happen to have senators because they are a state, I guess. And the first time since 1954, both of their Senate races are happening in the same election cycle, which would have and should have been the most interesting thing about their Senate race because like 12 people live there. They're a very red state. There hasn't been a Democrat who's won a statewide seat in Nebraska since 2008. So in general, these elections would just be a formality. As a result, I wouldn't be talking about them because, you know, what's the point? But that all changed when Dan Osborne entered the race. Now, as far as I can tell, this is the first elected public office seat that Dan is running for, and even if it's not, if he wins, it would be the first elected public office he would hold. I get requests to do videos on first-time candidates all the time, and I basically never do them because what am I going to talk about? I have no legislative history. There hasn't been a whole lot of journalistic investigation into their past. I'd basically just be reading off their campaign websites to you guys, and that's basically what I'm going to be doing here, and you'll see just how painfully unthorough that is. So why on earth am I doing Dan? Well, let's get into it. Dan, insert middle name here because I couldn't find it. Osborne was born in 1974 or 1975. I don't know. Quite literally, that's what his Wikipedia page says. Like I told you, just painfully unthorough. Graduated from Roncalli Catholic High School in 1994. He's married to a lady named Megan, and they've got 3 kids. There you have it. That's the deep dive on his personal life and education. He then served in the Navy for 4 years, and when he got out, he joined the Nebraska National Guard. During this time, he also became an industrial mechanic working for the Kellogg factory. While being an industrial mechanic for Kellogg, he became president of his union. And as president, he led his union in a successful strike against Kellogg to make sure that they kept their benefits and the plant would stay open. And right there, that automatically wins him some cool points in my book. Now he works doing maintenance at Boys Town, which when I first read that, I definitely thought was going to be a gay thing. It's not. It's a family services facility that was originally started by a Roman Catholic priest as an orphanage for boys. I mean, at first glance, it seems like a very good program, and everything. Just the branding could use a little work. A little bit of time spent on marketing goes a long ways, is all I'm saying. Anyway, while doing that, I guess he just woke up one day and he's like, I'm gonna run for Senate, and that's what he's doing now. And this is where it starts to get interesting, because he should have absolutely no chance at winning, because he's got, 0 experience in public office, and he's also not running as a Republican. Or a Democrat, which is, rare but not unheard of for U.S. senators. Obviously, most notably, Bernie Sanders is an independent U.S. senator. But independent senators like Bernie usually caucus with and are endorsed by, at least on occasion, Democrats. And Dan ended up being kind of a dick to the Democrats. See, because Dan was running, the Democrats agreed not to run a Democratic candidate. We're planning on endorsing Dan, and we're helping him with some resources. Once the deadline passed for the Democrats to enter their own candidate, Dan was like, nah, I don't want your endorsement. I don't want any political party endorsement. And the Nebraska Democratic Party is unsurprisingly unhappy about that. While I do think he could have played that decision a little cleaner, I can't really fault him for it. Because Dan is presenting himself as a true independent to Nebraskans. While distancing himself from Democrats will lose him a lot of the party infrastructure that would make it easier for him to fundraise and potentially win, it also probably makes him more competitive in a ruby red Republican state. So then the question becomes, is Dan better than the Republican alternative incumbent he is looking to replace? Well, we already know he's a union man, so he's got some pro-labor credentials. According to his website, he is pro stay the fuck out of my business, which means he's pro the government not telling you who you can love or what you can do with your own body. And of course my trailer's broke. Why wouldn't it be? Any sandblasters and fabricators out there in Minnesota who feel like fixing a trailer, hit me up. He says he wants to cut taxes on small business and the middle class, which is usually a red flag for me because that's almost always accompanied by, also we want to give really big tax cuts to rich people and just pass the buck and the debt on to you. It's a little bit more of a red flag when he says cut wasteful spending, but doesn't specify which wasteful spending specifically in his platform. But he also says closing loopholes for multinational corporations, which gives me a little bit of hope on his tax policy, but I'd certainly like to see some more detailed plans about what he's proposing. He does say he's for cutting subsidies to big pharma, so that's a bright side. And he does say he wants to lower taxes on overtime wages, which I think is a probably equitable, a little bit more progressive tax policy to have. He says he wants laws and a restructuring of farm subsidies to favor family farms and ranches, which I think we can all get behind. He wants to increase railroad safety, which is obviously something we are in desperate need of. And he's for legalizing cannabis, so, you know, that's positive. All in all, he seems to be a pretty pro-labor, pro-union candidate, and that must be resonating with the people of Nebraska, because he is very competitive in the polls, like within a few percentage points. Granted, it's early and a lot can change, but being pro-choice, pro-labor, and him avoiding that stigma of having a D next to his name or some association with that seems to be working at the moment. And I am very excited to see what's going to happen. So Nebraska, I'd say it might be worth looking into Dan Osborne, the independent, to represent you come November. Probably can't be worse than what you got now. A lot of his positions look pretty good for the average worker. And hey, trading in one of your ruby red Republicans to have one of the nation's only independent senators representing you would be a pretty cool thing and make Nebraska interesting and relevant for a little bit. What do you got to lose? Anyway, I gotta go borrow my dad's trailer now because everything is always broken, and that is making my day much longer. So I'm gonna leave you guys with that, and I hope, Nebraska, to see you with a new senator come November.